Okay, I'm going to start recording and I'm going to mute.
Right.
So 3, 2, 1, let's go. Welcome, everyone. Hi, I'm Albert, CEO of Bitcoin Startup Lab, and welcome to the Who's Who and the Founders Joining the Bitcoin Interview Series. The Bitcoin community has come together to celebrate innovative and significant achievements on Bitcoin so that we can reinforce and grow the innovation culture on Bitcoin. So significant achievements on Bitcoin are things that were done for the very first time ever or setting new records to push forward the innovation frontier of Bitcoin. We're hoping that by sharing this, we're going to invite more people to build on Bitcoin. This show is brought to you by the Bitcoin Startup Lab. We're a top accelerator in the Bitcoin ecosystem. We help people turn their ideas into investment-worthy startups on Bitcoin. Also, our media partner, CryptoSlate, a crypto-agnostic media platform that brings the latest happenings on Bitcoin to the rest of the crypto world. And a big thank you to our teams and all the guest speakers that have come together to make this show possible and accelerate the advent of the Bitcoin economy. And today, I'm super thrilled to announce that our special guest is Becca Rubenfeld, COO of AnchorWatch, and they are the first to launch an insurance product on Bitcoin L1. But before we get into the main event, let's start from the top. Welcome, Becca. Thanks for coming to our show today.
Morning, Albert. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So this show, we break it into 3 parts. Let me go with 3 parts so the audience knows. Like the first part is a dive into Becca's founder origin story, right? Even before she did her first formal startup, what were her side hustles? And we're hoping by sharing this story, it'll inspire more people and resonate with more people to want to go on the path to build something very valuable on Bitcoin, just like Becca did with AnchorWatch, right? And the second part is the journey getting into Bitcoin and leading up to AnchorWatch. And finally, the final part is about AnchorWatch and how they became the first to produce an insurance product on Bitcoin on L1, all right? And then at the very end, we're going to open up the floor for Q&A. So if there's anything that piques your interest and you want to ask Becca about it, the last segment is your chance to come up to the stage and ask some questions. Wonderful. So let's get into it. So Becca, how about what's the first side hustle that you can remember? You know.
Well, I've always done side hustles. So my whole career until doing AnchorWatch was corporate America. So as soon as I finished school all the way through, early on they were never intended to be more than some side incomes. So I did photography for a long time. So I was doing portraits and family photos, that kind of thing. And so I did that for a long time just for, spending money, extra income. I think where most recently, my biggest side hustle and where it really helped transition me and transition my entire career was a few years ago. I started working with an angel investor, and this kind of intersects with the whole foundation of AnchorWatch itself, but in terms of just viewing as a side hustle. So Brad is a prolific angel investor, very focused on funding very early stage, first money in or angel round, seed round Bitcoin companies. I had gotten to know him, a few years ago, and he was looking for some help vetting the startups that were coming across his desk. So I started doing that. I was still working in corporate America. I was working at Starbucks corporate at the time, but just saw it as some extra income. But this time it was actually very interesting from a professional standpoint. I got to learn venture a little bit. I got to see all the different Bitcoin builders who were coming across, see how different founders were presenting themselves and their projects. And really that piqued my interest in becoming a founder, thinking about how if it was my company, how I'd present it myself, what I would do similarly, what I'd do differently. And then ultimately that, again, kind of intersects with AnchorWatch itself and how it founded.
Well, thanks for sharing that overview. Let me it sounds like your experience with working with Brad and doing angel investments, like the first check-in, like gave you a lot of inspiration. Were there, I mean, it sounds like you did a lot of projects. Now, were there anything that like can can you pinpoint, like, maybe you saw a project, or what was that moment where you decided, okay, well, I don't want to be on the investment side. I actually want to jump into the trenches now. Like,
Well,
what was that shift?
I think the opportunity. So as we start talking more about Anchor Watch, I think I'll share more about what made me actually want to take the leap within doing the side hustle and viewing all the deals and deal flow that were coming with Brad. It just gave me a lot of insight in terms of again, how founders present themselves and their projects. And it really, as someone coming from corporate America, my view is on scale. So what does a money maker look like? What actually has the ability to make money in the future? Who are the teams that have the ability to not just get a startup off the ground, but actually have the ability to continue to lead it, assuming it is successful. And so I really, in this space, in the Bitcoin space, started getting a sense of kind of the strengths and weaknesses that I see across these very early stage. I think there are a lot of projects that are really cool. Maybe might be cool technically, but does it have the ability to deliver returns to the investor? If it doesn't, should that prevent an investment? So as Bitcoin investors, it's a little different from, I think, perhaps some other spaces of venture where we really need the tech to progress, right? We need builders building. And so are there certain projects where you should go ahead and invest in them for the ability to push forward the tech and make sure people are focused on building? And that's something Brad thinks about a lot in terms of the investments he makes. And so it was just a really good opportunity to view things through that lens. Sometimes there were deals, I fully supported, sometimes deals that I wasn't quite sure if they'd provide returns and would have made it through a different lens. But I think it was just a really, really excellent kind of proving ground to think about. And then as the opportunity to do Anchor Watch came about, really thinking about it through those lenses. Like, what are we doing that's good for Bitcoin, that will help Bitcoin scale, that will help it be successful? But how can we do this in a way that, we feel really great about our ability to scale this business, provide excellent returns to our VCs, et cetera.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Becca. And like, when I was hearing you go through this process, I couldn't help but wonder, okay, before of course, there's a gap in the market, right? And that's why you guys created Anchor Watch. But aside from Anchor Watch, before we get there, what were some of the other gaps in the market, right? When you were, like, I guess this question is two parts. One, what were some of the more exciting categories that you've seen recently from the angel investment side? And then what were the gaps? Like, you see a lot of projects, but there must have been some gaps. So, like, two parts of the question.
Yeah. So, I think we see a lot of projects that had similarities to one another. So, multiple startups doing kind of similar versions of certain segments of the market. I think the ones that I think are really interesting are those that are using Bitcoin tech to expand the market outside of just Bitcoin number go up. So, there's telecom, there's lightning infrastructure that is being used really in a way to solve real world problems outside of Bitcoin. So those are the ones that I think I found pretty interesting. So streaming payments, things like that, they can actually solve problems outside of the ecosystem. I think like whether it's content creators and how lightning could be used to compensate content creators, that's kind of surface level. But can you take that same Lightning infrastructure and take it outside of Bitcoin entirely? Can you use that as a way to stream payments for telemedicine? So something that really has nothing to do with Bitcoin itself, but uses this, free and instant, or close to free and instant technology to kind of solve a problem in the medical industry. Similarly, in the energy industry. So ways to promote quick settlement, I think is really interesting. And those are the ones that tend to interest me more, or that I see as solving problems in the broader economy, not just in our little Bitcoin ecosystem.
Wow, super. That's amazing. So you came up with energy, medical, streaming payment. That's a lot. So out of all these choices, why did you end up like filling the gap for AnchorWatch, the first insurance on Bitcoin L1? I mean, which is a pretty big achievement. But of all the things to choose, what attracted you and your team to this one the most?
Well, so honestly, we started doing when we started AnchorWatch, the vision for the company was a bit different than it is now. So it was really looking at a way to encourage self-custody, make self-custody more palatable. So we started as a retail-focused product, thinking about multi-sig custody. So you have a 2 of 3, that you're storing on your personal residence or dispersed into different locations, but all in the custody of the owner of the Bitcoin, and trying to provide regulated insurance on that as a way to just encourage investment in the space, and specifically using self-custody. Ultimately, what we decided, I mentioned that kind of my eye is to scale in general. And we ultimately decided that that really just that market wasn't quite mature enough to support the size business that we were trying to do. So, were there enough people self-custodying who were interested in having that coverage? And more importantly, a big part of insurance is reinsurance. Reinsurance is the entity that sits behind a smaller insurer and actually provides that risk capital and ultimate underwriting in case something goes wrong. So part of our job at AnchorWatch has been to explain Bitcoin, explain custody to these capital allocators in a very, very traditional industry, been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. You could describe them as stodgy in a large sense, and convince them that this is a valid way to store an asset. And yes, it's a palatable risk for you to take in terms of your capital allocation. So we started down that path. Rob, my co-founder, built out some tech that allowed us to prove ownership, and prove physical custody of those hardware wallets. And ultimately, what we found is that the capital allocators, the reinsurers, still didn't quite have confidence in that tech. So we pivoted to commercial, where we could think about custody a little bit differently. And from there, I know you're going to be talking to Rob coming up, but from there, Rob started exploring, building our own vault or our own wallet system that we could feel comfortable say, all right, so now we're pivoting to commercial and really large dollars. We want to encourage institutional investment in Bitcoin. Potentially, we're going to be supporting the custody of and ensuring, billions and billions of dollars worth of wealth. We need absolutely the most secure way to custody Bitcoin possible, because ultimately we've got skin in the game. We're underwriting this risk. The capital allocators behind us are doing the same. So we've got really, really big dollars on the line. How are we going to do this with absolute confidence? So Rob started exploring building custom scripts for our own vault, something that would really be focused on making it perfect for insurance. And what he came across was Miniscript. So Miniscript was developed by the Blockstream team back in 2018, 2019, and largely it was shelved for a long time. So it was out there, it's part of Bitcoin, it's in Bitcoin Core today, but nobody had really productized it until we jumped in and got moving. There's a couple of other wallets who are building on it now, Liana and one or two others that we're aware of, but we looked at it and Rob in particular was like, oh my God, like Miniscript, it actually already has everything that I was considering doing as part of custom scripts. And we can use Miniscript as it exists to really make insurance possible. So with Miniscript, that gives us the ability to really use Bitcoin as programmable money, to integrate it with the legal infrastructure that is insurance, and yeah, bring the first kind of programmable insurance policy to Bitcoin. So important to note that our insurance is it really is the intersection of the tech and legal insurance. So I think out there in the broader crypto land, there are various projects who have explored doing kind of protocol insurance projects, I would say, that really is in a way misusing the word insurance. So they're taking the idea of insurance and kind of mimicking that in a protocol level project. But it includes things like, maybe a DAO or a different decentralized organization voting on if a policy or a claim benefit is going to be approved, things like that. We're doing it differently. So we're doing it from a very we jokingly say boomer-esque, but we're approaching insurance from a very, very traditional standpoint, where we're really we're not mimicking insurance on protocol. We're actually instituting real insurance. So this is regulated traditional property insurance, but woven into that are L1 Bitcoin protocol level security features using Miniscript. And so that's how Trident, which is our vault, and then actual legal contract, which is the insurance, come together.
Wow, okay, that's exciting. So for those of you guys just joining us now, this is the who's who in Bitcoin innovation, and we picked top 30 Bitcoin innovators that have either done something for the first time ever in Bitcoin, such as AnchorWatch and their first to market insurance on Bitcoin L1, no other. Or another significant shipment is setting a new record for existing category. And right now we're right in the middle of getting into what makes AnchorWatch special. And towards the end of the segment, if anything piques your interest or you guys want to ask any questions, we're going to open up the floor for Q&A. All right, so let's get back to this because this segment has a lot of gems in it, right? I want to start from the first part where you were sharing the journey on how you guys were pivoting from different market segments that need insurance, because insurance is a massive $1 trillion market, right? But where do you start? Where do you start, right? As a startup team, we had to pick and choose our battles, right? So in the beginning, I think it sounded like more like consumer facing, but then you guys decided, hey, the market's not ready yet at this point. And then you guys pivot to another one. And then like, I think I heard like two main pivots, but can you sort of go into like that pivoting part? Because I think that's I haven't met a single successful team that did not pivot. So like, this is to inspire more builders coming to Bitcoin and hopefully stay some time, right? And not like it's going to be painful, like a startup, no matter what, but maybe we could help save them some pain if you share a little bit more details on the pivoting. And then,
yeah, you're right that we started consumer facing retail. We're still going to be servicing retail customers, but in a bit different way. But we primarily pivoted our focus to larger institutional customers. And I'll say when we finally made that decision, well, I should kind of pull out the word finally. When we made the decision, we made it very, very quickly. So we had been working through kind of our vision, which, as I mentioned, was this kind of retail focused insure self-custody. So we wanted people to self-custody. We knew that insurance is lacking in that you can store, let's say, diamond earrings, or you can store a piece of fine art in your home and get that insured. But if you store Bitcoin in your home, the insurance isn't available for you to service that. So that was the original vision. It's like, hey, this is a valuable asset. We believe it's going to become far more valuable. Insurance is a $7 trillion industry. It needs to be here. So we started building towards that. Our tech was built towards that. Just our vision, our customer focus everything was built towards that. There were two things that started informing us that the pivot was necessary. One was the actual customer market, so the retail themselves. And then the other was the foreseen function of the reinsurance or the capital allocators behind us. And those two things came to a head. And at the point that they came to a head, it was unavoidable. It was very, very clear that like this isn't going to work as is. So on the retail side, what we were really seeing was the size of the market itself. So as we were doing analysis on how many wallets are out there, the chart looks great. Like the number of users and the number of wallet addresses goes up.
At that time, roughly how many wallet addresses?
I think we had determined that with at least one Bitcoin, there were around like 800,000 addresses out there. And so, we could make some guesses in terms of where those are located. Are they in the United States, elsewhere? How many of them are actually owned by the same individuals? So we were making some guesses there. And looking at that TAM and, what percentage of that group of individuals would we have to go after? Like, oh yeah, we can make that work. But really, as we talked to people across the industry, whether it's other VCs or other companies that are up and running in retail-focused companies, getting a better sense of the number, and this is important, the number of retail Bitcoiners who are out there who are willing to spend money for a product or a service. Ultimately, even if there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them out there, how many of them are actually in a place that outside of, say, maybe a hardware wallet or some other kind of, basic building blocks are spending money on services? And what we found was that it seemed really low. And in order to build that business, at the beginning of the call, talking about my work with Brad and his angel investing, looking at investments that can actually generate a return for our angel investors who had backed us at this point, like it started looking, pretty concerning that can we actually build this into the size of business that we want to and that our investors wanted us to when they made the investment. And then the other side was the reinsurance. So, just to kind of reiterate the way insurance works. So insurance, by definition, is a regulated industry. It's regulated because the whole point of insurance is to be an actual guarantee, not just, the words, I promise if something goes wrong, we're going to cover you, but actually documented, we have the ability to meet our financial obligations if something in fact does go wrong. And so, there's a couple of obvious ways to provide that guarantee, and regulators, if you're going to call yourselves insurance, and become licensed in insurance, you have to be able to prove ultimately one of these two ways. So the first is just have a very, very deep balance sheet. That's to say, statistically, we project this amount of loss. If this amount of loss happens, we have the capital on hand that we could make those customers, we could uphold our financial obligations and take care of those customers. And in fact, beyond that, if 3 of those events, if 5 of those events, if 10 of those events happened, very statistically improbable, but you have to be able to prove that you have the balance sheet on hand to actually take care of your customers. If you don't, then, insurance is rendered really quite pointless and rendered void. So like during the 2008 financial crisis, if you remember, one of the big news items there is it wasn't just financial services providers that were deemed too big to fail. But if you remember, AIG was in the mix there too, because they had gotten themselves into a situation where that became questioned, right? If they actually have the ability and the wide-reaching impacts if they didn't have the ability to honor their obligations. So as a young startup, we certainly do not have the balance sheet to take care of customers if there's losses of millions and millions of dollars. So what did the regulators say? The alternative is to that, and that is what's called reinsurance. So reinsurance sits behind a small insurer and provides the capital and more or less acts as that super deep balance sheet. So it's another layer of kind of a financial contract between ourselves and them, where they are also looking at the risks that we're trying to insure. So if you go back to this retail product, we're explaining to them behind us, like, here's what we want to do. It's called multi-sig. It's super secure. You disperse the wallets, and like now a tornado can't take out the Bitcoin. Like, this is actually improvement to the painting that you are willing to insure. And so we're really trying to teach them about Bitcoin, teach them about the tech, about multi-sig, explain why this is a superior asset to insure. And ultimately, the reinsurers, while they I think did eventually understand what we were doing, they actually then looked at the same thing we were looking at on the other side, which is the size of the market. Once they allocate capital to underwrite our program, they can't allocate that capital elsewhere. So they're saying like, it's interesting, but I'm not sure that your market is big enough for us to bother allocating our capital to your program. And so this was the intersection that it became very clear that a pivot was necessary. And we pivoted, I mean, within hours, within hours. Like, once these two things came together, we were questioning the market size. Would we be able to find enough customers? And now we've got the capital allocator saying the exact same thing. At that point, we didn't fight it at all. We said, this isn't going to work as an early stage startup. We need to look at where larger pools of Bitcoin are sitting. Where are they sitting? They're sitting with commercial entities, either existing today or in the future, new entrants coming in. That's who we need to service. So pivoted to commercial, in an afternoon, started considering what that meant for us. Okay, so we've got this totally different target market.
So yep. Wait. Basically, in like half a day, you guys pivoted from the first.
Yeah. As soon as it became clear, we did not cry over it. We simply pivoted to build a business that actually works.
So before I continue, this is very insightful. This is also something I noticed of successful founders, is that there's a high mental flexibility, right? And sort of being objective enough, like sort of keeping the vision in mind, but being objective enough to be able to turn on a dime, so to speak, like that kind of mental flexibility. What do you think that? What do you think? How were you guys able to do it like so fast, whereas other people might get stuck there? Is there anything you could share with people so maybe less people get stuck in the future?
Well, I can share where in my background I kind of hones that ability.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's maybe a lesson in there that others can take. But for me, it really did come from a particular role within corporate America that I had. So like I mentioned earlier, I spent my whole career at corporate America. The last 10 years before Anchor Watch, I was at Starbucks corporate. And specifically, the middle few years there, I was on an innovation program. It was it was such a fun job, but it was this little pocket of people that sat, directly under the innovation team, which was run by Howard Schultz, who was the CEO for many, many years. And what we were doing, it wasn't only tests, but you could consider it testing. So, we were spinning up concept stores, standing up acquisitions that had been made, going out and looking for acquisitions, looking for small brands that we thought could translate to the Starbucks ecosystem, doing tests, looking at new ways of doing things, weird stuff, fun stuff, and what that gave us the ability to do. So we were taking it sometimes, in the case of an acquisition, maybe taking something that already kind of existed or existed in a form, and we were trying to change that form. Other times it was just a white blank page. So, what would it look like if Starbucks did X, And we were taking that, this group of people taking that and going from a white blank page to an actual testable vehicle. So, let's say it was a concept store. There was a smoothie store, a smoothie concept. So going from not existing to all of a sudden we've got 4 stores, we've got it out there. We're playing with the pricing, we're playing with the menu, looking at what works, looking at what doesn't, very quickly iterating. And if it worked, once we had dialed it in, then we can hand it over to other teams who are going to go and scale that business and roll it into large operations. The vast majority, 90% didn't work. Okay. So part of my job, when I talk about it, it's like, oh, we were standing up these businesses. A big part of my job was also tearing down these businesses. So we had just spent, a year, 6 months or something, standing something up. And you know what? This does not work. I don't even know why we thought it would work. This doesn't work. Let's wind it down, and winding it down really quickly. Let's not continue to spend resources on this. Let's call this the L that it is, move out and go on to the next thing. And so I got really hundreds of reps over these several years of spinning up different ideas, getting an idea if it would work, seeing where it wouldn't work, and moving on and not wasting any more time or resources once I had made that decision or we had made that decision. So that's really, for me, I think, where the ability to move very quickly on that. I'm not precious on the idea. So, we still think that the retail self-custody insurance is a great product. We think it's a product that should exist and someday will exist on the marketplace. But we are not big enough to support that balance sheet without reinsurance. And so until such time that we've convinced reinsurance that it's a good risk for them to take, it's not going to happen. So, I always visualize things in terms of gates. And I do this within the startup itself. So, we're walking down a road, we're sprinting down a road as it were, and up ahead, you can see different gates up ahead of you. So like whatever, gates 1 through 6 or something. And from this depth of field, maybe all 6 are within range. Like we could go through gate 1 or gate 3 or gate 4, whatever it may be. And so you're running really fast and they're all there. But as you get closer and closer, it becomes evident that, gate 2, gate 5, like that, those aren't going to work. Those are closed. So like now we're down to 4 gates. And so you're running, and that ability to say, as you're approaching them, 5 and 6 are a waste. Like, let's not focus there, and continue to focus in and just remain open to what gates are actually, have the door ajar and have the opportunity for you to blow through them, and making sure that you're always reassessing those gates and what they are. And so if I happen to have been in love with the idea of gate 5, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I was in love with. What matters is if there's a market for the product, it's a viable business, viable idea. And really my feelings on the matter are pretty irrelevant to the ultimate decision.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of gems in there. You beautifully explained the science of a startup with your own experience. So I want to sort of underscore some of those points so people in the audience can also get these gems, especially those of you who are on your founder's journey right now. So the first thing is I noticed if you guys noticed, Becca was talking about how 90% was actually poking holes in the idea and trying to tear it down, right? Because only the ideas where you rigorously try to tear it down, you can't tear it down, only those ideas will work actually, right? So it's actually not trying to like validate or prove that something is working. We're trying to actually invalidate it, right? Try to take like, where are the showstoppers? What could go wrong? Where are the holes in the boat, in the hole, right? And so that was really great to share with everyone. I hope everyone learns from that experience. It's a paradigm shift, because a lot of people, like you said, they'll fall in love with an idea, and then all of a sudden we're not able to be critical about it. We're not able to think what could go wrong, right? And that's more like a hobby. But if we're a startup, then yeah, we have to reverse our paradigm and say like, all right, awesome idea, but what could go wrong, right? Because startup needs to like have nothing go wrong in order for it to become a sustainable business. So I think that was great. Thanks for sharing that story with us. Also, it also I guess if you guys have to go to corporate America, first go to innovation department, right? Because don't go to the part in the company where it's like stagnant or you're doing the same thing over and over again.
That was on purpose, by the way. So I was part of this huge organization, and the way it was organized was that you have really large responsibilities. So I had responsibility for hundreds of millions of dollars, but it was for a certain segment of activities within a particular business. And so, it was a large dollar responsibility, but ultimately my accountability was like from here to here. And I really liked, having the full end-to-end purview so you can make holistic decisions. And so that role was one that didn't really exist. So I had been assigned to a single innovation product or project rather. And at the time, the way those were kind of handled when there were projects like that was that somebody who was in the broader business would just get handed one of these small things to do on the side. So your primary job is here. We're going to give you this little slice and this little slice of innovation projects and just roll it into your kind of overall workload. And I propose that these roles require a different mindset. What you're describing, they require you to want to work outside of the bureaucracy, outside of the systems, be super flexible, be super agile, fast, innovative itself. And so propose to pull all of them that had been dispersed across, a couple of hundred people into a small number of roles. And that's how really that role came about. Because that to me was just way more fun and worked out well for a few years.
Super. Thanks for taking the time to share with the audience how you develop that mental flexibility. That's great. So let's come back to Anchor Watch now. So you guys applied it half a day. You guys pivoted out of that idea, and then eventually landed on what you guys are doing now. Now, can you walk us through the process of, like, let's say I'm a customer, or I guess there's people providing the Bitcoin, and then there's also the customers, right? So is this, do I understand this correctly? It's like a two-sided market, or do you guys have your own vault? Just try and like completely like so it's only one-sided. Like
let me pick that apart a little bit. So
walk us through the process so we understand like how the first version of the product works.
Yeah, I'd love to say that it's a very clean two-sentence thing, but in fact, insurance is very complicated. Okay, so first, let's just talk about the tech itself. And so when you chat with Rob, he'll go much deeper into actually building the tech and how we're using it. But Trident is our multi-sig vault enabled by Miniscript. So what Miniscript enables, what we are using of Miniscript are two primary functions, key hierarchies and time locks. So what a key hierarchy is saying is, Albert, maybe you have some Bitcoin, you want to store it on multi-sig, you want some help dispersing those wallets. So maybe you give me a key and maybe you give Rob a key, and we're holding them for you, right? So we're all spread across the country or the world. So we've mitigated some risks, right? Like there's no tornado or hurricane that's going to take out your Bitcoin, et cetera. But because it's your Bitcoin, you still have some concerns. primarily. Now, Rob and I have 2 of the 3 keys. You're still a bit worried that he and I can collude together and steal your Bitcoin. So what a key hierarchy does, enabled by Miniscript, is it says that, Albert, because it's your Bitcoin, we can make your key senior. And this is programmed into the vault itself. So once the vault is configured, it is not changeable. It is using Bitcoin cryptography. It's there. There's no circumstance that it can be changed after the fact. So we can program it where your key must sign, and then say one of Rob and my keys must sign. And you're like, cool. Well, now I'm not worried about you and Rob colluding anymore, but now we've exposed a new risk. My key must sign, your key must sign. So what happens if your key is damaged or lost? What happens if you get hit by a bus? That's where the time locks come in. So time locks are really a time unlock, because once a spending condition is programmed onto the blockchain as available, it's available forever. So what a time lock actually does is it unlocks an additional spending condition that becomes available after a certain amount of time. So in our example here, this basic example, we'll say after a year, maybe it goes from where your key must sign to maybe it's a normal 2 of 3. Or maybe after a year, it's a 1 of 3. Or maybe after a year, we introduce a 4th key that wasn't there in the first layer. That's an emergency only key. So you can start layering in. And by the way, this is totally customizable. So you can start layering in additional time locked spending conditions that allow you to not mitigate only the biggest fear, the thing that you're most afraid of, but let's go ahead and mitigate that. And then we'll add on layers that start to mitigate the tail risk. So like, all right, well, what happens if one of you is a bad actor and I get hit by a bus? So we're like, all right, then if we want to mitigate that, let's put in a time lock, that is designed to mitigate that particular combination of risks. And so through really thoughtful kind of game theory vault construction, you can ultimately mitigate a huge number of risks. So how we're using that for insurance then, and specifically focusing on large sums of Bitcoin institutional customers, is we're saying, all right, we can actually make this as complicated as makes sense to reduce risk. So again, big corporate America is my background. I have a good sense from other roles that I had of like what it takes to spend, 20 million of the company's money, or 100 million, or $1 billion of the company's money. There are different rule sets. There are different signatures required for different spend sizes and for different situations, for different types of vendors, for different jurisdictions, right? So we can start to say, all right, let's take that idea of the layered security vault and let's expand it for institutional customers. So now, Albert, let's say that you are heading up a hedge fund. So we can say your hedge fund has its own key set, not just its own key, but we have multiple key sets programmed into Bitcoin.
Okay, so this is great. We're getting into a specific example. So yeah. When you say hedge fund, okay, so the customer is the hedge fund. So
customer is the hedge fund.
If I'm the hedge fund, I have a bunch of money, but in this case, it's a bunch of Bitcoin that I'm managing, or
you want to maybe. Okay. Yeah, let's say you're considering maybe making a large investment into Bitcoin. You're not quite comfortable handing over all your Bitcoin to a sole custodian. Your LPs, maybe, your investors are not comfortable with you holding all the keys. So what can be done? And we provide a solution for that. That's a middle ground that provides the benefit of some outside help and oversight without totally giving up sovereignty and giving up the custody to an uninsured custodian.
So for me and for the audience, let's make sure we're on the same page here before we move. So in this example, I'm the head fund manager, and let's say I have $50 million in cash, and now I want to take $20 million and convert it into Bitcoin.
That's right. And
then normally it would probably be under like somebody's, maybe the managing director. Right? Yeah. And so $20 million worth of Bitcoin with one person. So it's something that happened to me. Or maybe I could be like, maybe one day, like,
you're a bad actor.
I'm a bad actor or something terrible happens and I have to use the money, whatever reason, like it's not safe as just one person, or maybe
Mhm.
I lose the keys, right? That's
Yeah.
all. That's
Or more realistically, maybe your fund won't even let you make that investment to start with. Like, so
okay.
you can't even make the $20 million investment into Bitcoin because of this custody, kind of binary custody.
Because all the risks involved with it, with being
Exactly.
a solo
Too big of a risk. You just can't make that
risk.
investment.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. I get it. All right. So,
All right.
and then how does Anchor Watch solve that problem? This is
Yep.
part.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of rounding out how the tech itself does it, and then we'll layer in the insurance
Sure.
on top of it. So the tech is saying, okay, let's make it so instead of just the hedge fund having a key, we're going to make the hedge fund have a key set. So maybe the hedge fund itself has its own 2 of 3. And so maybe the hedge fund manager and the CFO and maybe a board member, have the 3 keys. And so we're going to combine that with Anchor Watch ourselves holding a key set. So now as the insurer, so again, we'll get to the insurance, but just assume that we're insuring this vault. So while we're insuring the vault, we are a required signer on the vault. So now the hedge fund has its own key set, 2 of 3. Anchor Watch has its key set, let's say it's 2 of 3. And then optionally, we can pull in maybe a neutral third-party institution to also have a key set. So now in just a single layer, we have multiple key sets, each of which must meet their own rules. So if the hedge fund has a 2 of 3, regardless of what happens in the other key sets, that Bitcoin is not going to move if the hedge fund didn't collect 2 of 3 signatures. And likewise with Anchor Watch. What that allows us to do as the insurer is by placing ourselves as a required key signer, is to say that we have what we call negative control. So we never, ever have the ability to spin the customer's Bitcoin without their participation. So Anchor Watch never has the ability in any of our vaults to unilaterally move the hedge fund's Bitcoin without their signatures. So they have to sign off, but they also cannot, while they're insured, while we have liability for this vault, they cannot move the Bitcoin without our signatures. What that allows us to do is take the concept of real world traditional finance compliance and governance, and we actually put it protocol level. So you can't forge our signature because, we have an air gapped, hardware system. So there is no forgery really that's possible. And so we're taking, again, this idea of compliance and governance, we're making it protocol level. So unhackable because it's Bitcoin cryptography. And we're just taking traditional compliance and governance and putting it on chain. So
No, that's
yeah.
brilliant. So let me just make sure I understand. So it's sort of like having, let's just say it's like having the 2 USB keys. Like first, like the finance person has to sign off on it, and only then can the CEO or the final decision maker sign off on it. In this case, the final decision maker is in this case it's a hedge fund, and you guys are like the finance, the gatekeeper for that. So it's like you have to get through each gate before.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So I mean, and we can just make it literal, and we can say, as the insurer, we're the ones that have liability for the safekeeping of this Bitcoin. So the final gate is the insurer. Between the hedge fund manager and us, you can, again, these vaults are customizable. So you can put your CFO on there. You could put your external auditing firm on there. You could put board members on there. All of those gates must be passed through. Again, as complex of a vault as makes sense. You never want to just introduce complexity for the sake of complexity. But when you're talking about 20 million or more, a certain amount of rigor makes perfect sense and mimics what traditional finance is used to. You don't just throw tens or hundreds of millions around without going through some procedures to confirm that this is an intended use of company funds.
Okay, so I can see how this is going to become more and more valuable very, very fast because we're fast approaching the Bitcoin halving, which is going to most likely trigger another bull run. And I see more and more fund managers having to store part of their value in Bitcoin, right? So this is going to be awesome. What's the sweet spot for you guys? I mean, like there's like small to large. Like what types of customers would be a beachhead market, sort of like what's your first stand?
So to use your term, our beachhead customer are mid-market. So we're going after funds, hedge funds, family offices, multifamily offices, pension funds, any entities like that who are fiduciaries of other people's money, looking to make investments. Also, I think mining pools seem very, very warm to the product. And then beyond that, kind of any commercial entity that's holding Bitcoin. But this also makes sense for high net worth, for family trusts. This mini-script technology, this combination of being able to be very specific in who holds keys and time locks and what becomes available when, it has amazing use cases for inheritance planning as well. So so you can really think about how you can use this to ensure that your beneficiaries are able to receive their Bitcoin as planned in the future, regardless of what happens. So we're going after this mid-market. Let's say we're targeting between about 500,000 worth of Bitcoin up to about 100 million. For our initial go. We can support larger, and we're working on a product to support smaller customers as well. But that's really who we're focusing on at launch.
Oh, good. I think there's some people that we might be able to introduce you guys to.
Amazing. We'll take those intros. Yeah.
To add to your growing list of customers. Yeah, great.
Yeah,
this is
amazing.
Yeah, and if anyone in the audience, if you guys fit that profile, you know who to call now.
Yeah, go ahead and reach out to me. I think we will be, we expect to be selling most likely by the end of this year. So Trident itself is in beta now. We're putting it through super intense security audits. So we're having multiple credentialed code auditors audit different aspects of the code. The vaults themselves are being audited by leading cryptographers. So when we say, hey, this is how a particular vault, the time locks and the key hierarchies, this is how we're telling you it's going to behave. You can take that and we'll have it audited already. So they can confirm that, yes, this is how it's going to work. What AnchorWatch is telling you, we verify. But if you want, this is the output descriptor in the vault. That is where that mini-script's kind of vault configuration lives. So you could independently, if you were a major customer, you're like, all right, this all sounds super interesting, and I'm not sure if I quite trust you yet. You can take the output descriptor from that vault configuration, take it to a neutral third party. They can audit it themselves, and they can verify for you directly.
Okay, so let me get this. I'm about to ask you, how much it costs. Like, let's say I have 30 Bitcoin, but before I get into that, I want to understand the business model a bit more.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be interesting to a lot of people listening. So in the beginning, you guys have this backend technology, and as a first use case, people anywhere between 500,000 to 100 million dollars worth of Bitcoin can take out insurance on it. Now, but then you also mentioned that, hey, this is the same backend technology can be applied to, say, inheritance. Right. So it almost seems like you guys are creating this insurance product as to showcase the power of the backend technology, and in the future, maybe it becomes like a protocol that people, or like an enabling tool or element to many different types of business models. Is that am I getting that correctly?
No, you're definitely getting that correct, and that's how we view it. So our first product has been pretty focused on cold storage. So we're utilizing mini-scripts in a cold storage vault. And so just within that, there's kind of, multiple kind of customer types, the funds making investments who just want it very securely stored, to, like I said, family trusts who are really thinking about inheritance planning. the tech itself is very, very similar. What we're talking about here is just really the vault configuration itself. Like what layers, what key hierarchies, what key sets make the most sense. But the tech is the same. And Trident, as we've built it, can support any number of types of customers and their particular needs within this exact same technology. Now, Miniscript can be combined with other tech. So it can be combined with MPC to get the benefits of Miniscript while in more of a hot wallet kind of use case. And that opens up a whole nother set of customers that we aren't yet going after, but we hope to down the road. And when you are on the call with Rob, you should chat with him about something that we're not currently using, but they're hash locks as well. So we're using time locks and key hierarchies. Those are the two from Miniscript that we're really focused on. There's also hash locks. And I think hash locks within Miniscript unlock potentially a ton of use cases that I certainly have not spent any time exploring yet, but things, sports betting or betting of any kind is a really easy example to throw out, but almost anything that has an escrow use case, you could really think about using hash locks to build out any number of businesses. And so I can't go deeper on that, but I would definitely recommend you.
No, but I think the high level here is anyone in the audience, if you guys were building any of these categories and find out, wow, there's like so much infrastructure to build, well, Anchor Watch is solving that for you guys. So this is again a massive, it's going to be $1 trillion market, right, that you guys are enabling. So
I think so, yeah.
A lot of unicorns in there. Even if you don't make a unicorn, it's $100 million. No one is going to fault you. But plenty,
right.
plenty of different ideas that Anchor Watch technology is going to enable. So it's like an enabling entire a genre of things on Bitcoin L1 or Anchor to L1. That's amazing. That's amazing. So all right, let's say I have $1 million in Bitcoin. How much is it going to cost me? Like, let's say I want to insure it. Right, like how much does it cost me, and then is it like what percentage of it is covered, right? Like,
so I'll speak a bit generically because we're still finalizing our deals with reinsurance. So reinsurance is that capital allocator behind us. There's a cost to capital, and so until we have finalized the deal and understand the cost of capital, we can't really finalize the customer facing. In general, we are targeting annual premiums. So this will be priced at insurance premiums, just like any other kind of insurance that you're used to paying. So as a percent of asset value, and we're targeting under 1%. So looking between 50 basis points and 1 point annually, looking at some competitors on the marketplace. And when I say competitors, I certainly don't mean apple to apple. There's nobody else doing exactly what we're doing, but there are some players offering, certain cyber covers, things like that are approaching a little bit differently. And we're very, very competitive compared to the rates that we're seeing out there. We've seen rates up to 4% that we think is not market clearing and doesn't enable investment in Bitcoin the way these lower premiums do. So we're working really hard to keep it quite affordable.
So 50 basis points, which is basically 0.5% to 1%. Yeah, that's look, I mean, I've heard of stories where my friend, they tell me, oh, my parents just got scammed. They had, like a few $1 million in Bitcoin, but it was like, the parents are a little older. People, they have scams, like very elaborate scams where they'll like masquerade as helping you on your PC, but they're actually private keys. And then boom, you just lost like 50 Bitcoin. Right. So,
and Trident would prevent
like nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah. So Trident would prevent that. Like, we Anchor Watch signs last. We've got a completely air-gapped system. So, even if you fell victim to, say, a phishing attack or malware on your hardware wallet, because our system is air-gapped, we'd be able to prevent losses that way. Additionally, we'll just provide some, human logic. So if we have an elderly couple and they're trying to all of a sudden put in a transaction to drain their entire vault, and when they signed up for their vault 4 months ago, they didn't tell us that, like, hey, by the way, I might be moving all my Bitcoin this year. We're going to get on the phone and have a conversation about why they're doing that. And we can just simply not sign for their protection until we're very, very confident in what's going on. The alternative that those parents have had to self-custody is to give it over to a sole custodian. And, in just the 18 months that we've been working on this, we've seen FTX and Celsius and Voyager and all these different providers who, got very big, very fast. That tends to give people the sense of confidence when, it's a huge company, it should be safe, right? And we've seen how that turned out. And without insurance, that just ends up being, an absolute loss for customers that had been using that as custody. And so we are the alternative to both of those things.
Yeah. So with this Anchor Watch Never Again, those scammers need to be put in their place. This is great.
Yeah, and we're very, we're very motivated. We will if something nefarious happens, we will be tracking those UTXOs and hunting them down. Like, it wouldn't end at the case of a successful heist, right? We would be pursuing that and tracking that Bitcoin.
So that's even another level of insurance. Excellent.
And disincentive, yeah.
We have about 15 minutes left. How about we open up the floor to some questions? If anyone's curious to ask any questions about anything that was discussed here, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll bring you up to stage here. This is like amazing. Once you guys open this up to the market, there's going to be an entire ecosystem that is enabled by your backend. This is just, even in the Bitcoin Startup Lab, we've had companies that abandon some of the ideas that you talk about because they just wow, the back, it's such a big hurdle. They pivot to something else, right? But with this, I think the next time we're about to finish up our Bitcoin Startup Lab on September 29th, but the next core is November 11th. Maybe you guys could come in and share all the things that Anchor Watch can enable, and then maybe some of those ideas that were sort of put on the shelf before they can finally be taken off the shelf and actually
pull them back off.
Pull them back off, because like you said, there's a bunch of great ideas. They just, the infrastructure is not there yet. But now with this, and other emerging technologies, it's there now. There's a really exciting stuff that.
Well, and props to the Blockstream team, that developed this tech to start with 4 or 5 years ago. Also, Bitcoin Design Kit, we utilize heavily. If your companies are not doing so, they definitely need to look into that. It's a true unlock and in terms of both what you can build and the speed that you can build in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bitcoin Dev Kit, I'm sorry.
Oh, Bitcoin Dev Kit.
Yeah.
You mean Steve Myers?
Yep, you got it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's great. He's great. That is also a very great enabling tool. Very practical.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a huge unlock in terms of speed, just in quality as well.
Yes. Speaking of the Bitcoin Dev Kit, if you guys, we have a hackathon going on right now too. It's also ending at the end of the month, so there's still almost 3 weeks. And I'm happy to say we have over 15 different technologies that you could build with on Bitcoin. One of them is the Bitcoin Development Kit. And if you use that technology, you're also eligible for a $50,000 prize pool. So if you guys want to check that out, you could just click on me or go to in Twitter at BTC Startup Lab, and you guys can sign up for that.
Cool.
All right, so let's go back. Let's get back to this. It looks like we have a shy crowd here because no one's raising their hands. I have a bunch of questions still. So if no one's gonna ask any, if no one's gonna ask any questions, then I guess they're like letting me ask the questions. Yeah.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, keep them going.
Yeah. No, so so going back to the whole reason why we're doing this, we have a target to do 30 top innovators of Bitcoin for 2023. Yeah. And this is actually this entire series and the Bitcoin Olympics hackathon was motivated by the same thing that I saw in Bitcoin. I'm pretty new to Bitcoin. I was about 21 months in.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So I can't even say 2 years. I say 2 years is roughly, but it's actually 21
Sure.
months. Like obviously I heard about it many, many years ago, and I was a naysayer. I was like, that's a scam. My brother tried to get me into it, like
Yeah.
right when it started. I was like,
I,
this is
I'm
this.
pretty new. I'm pretty new as well. I had been trading Bitcoin since 2019. But at that point I was totally just swing trading it. I didn't understand it. I hadn't researched it at all. It was just very volatile. And so I was swing trading it on Robinhood, actually, knew nothing about the bearer instrument itself. But yeah, in terms of starting to develop real knowledge, it was just over 2 years ago. So pretty new.
Yeah, no, yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks. I mean, that makes me feel better. Yeah, it shows that you can wrap up very quickly, right? In Bitcoin, and then do something very valuable on it. I mean, that also speaks to the state of the market. You can almost see Ethereum as a test net for Bitcoin, right? Because Bitcoin was
Sure.
latent for many years. The programmability was not truly unlocked for a long time.
Mhm.
But in the last year or so, technology after technology has been unlocking more and more programmability on Bitcoin. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but most of the people are still in Ethereum, right? So it creates a very amazing opportunity with the biggest crypto asset class by far.
Mhm.
But then there aren't enough builders to build all these great ideas. And then with Anchor Watch, you guys are about to unlock a bunch of more ideas that could be built, right? So it's like really amazing time right now for Bitcoin. What do you have to what's your take on the market timing? Because you're a founder, but you're also an investor. So you sort of
Mhm.
have a you do research, so you'll have a intuition for the trends. What's
Yeah.
your take on this right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bitcoin script is definitely having a moment. Mini script, one aspect of that. So I think there is a lot of movement right now, a lot of opportunities that we've been discussing. So I don't need to rehash those, but all sorts of different use cases that actually can happen on Bitcoin that maybe had been inaccurately portrayed as impossible on Bitcoin. So I don't know that it's like there's a ton of new inventions, though I think there are some, but I think there are people who are diving deep into actually what's possible on L1 Bitcoin today, and lots of unused functionality that people really need to dive into. One of our existing investors has talked about how the 4-year kind of cycles as they've existed to this point kind of have a tendency of bringing in not just new investors, but new kind of entrants as well. So people like me who left corporate America and chose to come build on Bitcoin full-time, work on Bitcoin full-time. So I think every time there's a cycle or a huge price run, people get interested because of number go up, right? And
Yeah,
maybe a huge portion of those, and this I think will be true with ETFs as well, where maybe the majority of those people who start paying attention because of the price, stop paying attention when the price is on a downswing, but a portion of those actually stay, and they get interested, and they're like, maybe they came for the price, they stayed for the tech, or they stayed for the mission, or whatever it is that really caught their eye about Bitcoin. So I think we'll just see this continual kind of increase. I do think now with this cycle, with what we're building, with what others are building, I do think we are working very hard to enable a whole new level of investors coming into the space. So that's, what Anchor Watch and all this kind of safety and security, regulated insurance, what we're looking to bring to market is all aimed to give the confidence to traditional finance, to traditional investors that say like, hey, this is viable. You don't need to only do it on, these particular, exchanges that have existed in the past, but, this can be done very responsibly. And in fact, as a fiduciary, allocating assets, not having exposure to Bitcoin is a bigger risk. And we want to create the tools and the infrastructure, both tech and legal, in place to give that confidence. And so I think that's what this cycle is going to be about.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. Not having Bitcoin is a big risk for sure. I mean, just I see Ragnar. We have a brave soul. Ragnar's
Oh
about
yeah.
to come and ask a question, but before that, let me just echo what you just said. I was researching Ethereum and Bitcoin like about 2 years ago when I was making the decision to pivot the Bitcoin Startup Lab fully into Web3. I was looking for a place.
Mhm.
We, the reason why we picked Bitcoin was back then we couldn't even find 100 apps on it, right? If you're
Mhm.
talking about product market fit, it's like definitely less than 10 or something, right? But then Ethereum had already gotten into tens of thousands, right? But I was looking at the price action. So when Ethereum was roughly the same state as where Bitcoin was, with just a couple hundred apps running on it, the price was like $30,
Mhm.
$40, right? But now because it's got thousands and thousands of useful applications running on it, the price action has more than 50x, right? So it's not inconceivable to see. Like maybe let's be conservative. Like even if Bitcoin doesn't 50x when there's thousands of apps running on Bitcoin,
Mhm.
even if it's 10x's, then I mean compared to that 1% insurance, like you got to do it,
Yeah.
right? Is like
Yeah, I mean, we
no
we
brainer.
definitely are very, very bullish about
Yeah,
the role that insurance can play
yeah.
as new entrants, new dollars come into the space.
So this is not financial advice, but this is more like my opinion. If you guys are in a bear market, this is the time to buy. But okay, so
Time
let's
to buy and time to build. It's
yeah,
a
time
it's a great time to be building. Man, it's
buy and hold.
I love that we're in the bear right now. That gives us the
Oh yes.
opportunity to get all of the infrastructure in place, get our processes in place, and be ready to support customers in a really positive way as a flood of noobs come on.
No, you're absolutely right. I was reading a report by Kaufman, and they estimate, or there's like a 150-year like study on. They took historic evidence about publicly traded U.S. companies, and they found like almost 2/3 were created during a bear market, but then yet the bear market only represents 20% of the time of the U.S. economy. So that's actually 10x more
Mm-hmm.
public companies or companies that survive and become big are created in downturns just like this,
That's
right?
amazing.
10x.
That's a
That's
good.
amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's a really cool stat.
Yeah. Okay. So, but we only have a few minutes left. Let me turn this over to Ragnar. Ragnar, thanks for listening and
Hello.
welcome up. Ask you a question. We got 5 minutes here. The floor is yours.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
And
Can,
yeah.
can you hear
Okay.
Ragnar? Okay. Perfect.
Great. Yeah, I think this is really interesting what you guys are doing and very much needed. I was just, the other day, the FBI confirmed that North Korea was behind that $41 million exploit of stake.com, or that betting site. 41 million is a lot of money, and it wasn't mostly Bitcoin, but I think it just shows that, North Korea is behind a lot of these hacks. And so just broadly speaking, I think there's a need for both kind of this way to secure Bitcoin, but also insurance in case something goes wrong. So that's just more of a comment about the need for this. And I guess the question is, are you guys keeping an eye on these, very sophisticated cyber threats, and any comments on those types of attack vectors?
I mean, yes, we definitely kind of keep an eye on what's going on out there, different attack vectors. Now, specifically, we started with cold storage for a reason. That the ability for AnchorWatch as a key holder to have our air gap system and really avoid a lot of cyber risks for our first product was very purposeful. So that's where we started because ultimately, like I mentioned before, even if a customer key set became exposed to, malware, phishing, something where somebody less sophisticated did get compromised, that our system would still be in place to prevent a loss there. And then on top of it, just as I mentioned earlier, we're going through having multiple credentialed firms audit our code. That will be an ongoing and eternal kind of evergreen activity for us. Now in the future, we absolutely aspire to broaden our offerings, have hot wallet insurance and services, things like that enable additional use cases of Bitcoin that maybe just aren't as suited to cold storage insurance. And at that point, but the product will change to support that. and then the insurance policies as well. So that would transition away from property insurance and into cyber cover. And yeah, there will be powerful attackers. The thing with Bitcoin and the value of the underlying asset, the fact that it is a bearer asset, means that it will forever have a giant target on it. It will always be a very appealing target. And so that's, again, part of the value that we're trying to bring to the system is acknowledge that and actually provide customers some peace of mind that this is a worthwhile asset to hold, despite the fact that there will always be a target on it.
Yeah, great question and great answers. Okay, so that was great. We got one question in. Thank you again, Rebecca, for coming up and sharing what you guys do in Anchor Watch, and congratulations on making it into the Who's Who. And also really, this is a noble cause for sharing your founder's origin story, because we believe that this will help a lot more people resonate with the founders already building Bitcoin, so they also want to come over as well. And
I appreciate it. Thanks for having it, and love the idea behind it, and looking to pull over really talented builders who see the opportunity here. We think that Bitcoin is going to be the enduring crypto, that the underlying kind of value case for Bitcoin is unique. So the more talented and intelligent and creative builders that we have in the space, the better for the ecosystem in general. So
absolutely. And we're going to do our part to make sure more people know about Anchor Watch so that they could build the applications on top of it. Again, this is a revolutionary enabling product on Bitcoin L1, and it's going to push for the innovation frontier on Bitcoin and allow more people to get into the action, right? More people to benefit from Bitcoin. And we're on time here, but everyone stay tuned. Rob, Becca's co-founder, is coming out in about half an hour, or in 1.5 hours right now, so everyone could take a break. But Rob is such a tech whiz. We accidentally wrote CTO, but he's actually the CEO, right? But so as Becca mentioned before, we're going to dive into some of those questions about how the technology works and exactly which parts of the technology unlocks which use cases. So that's going to be really, really exciting.
Yeah, Rob is extremely, he's extremely technically adept, but one of his super skills, I think, is explaining kind of the tech in a variety of terms. So he can go as technical as needed, but is great with analogies and explaining to kind of a his audience. So definitely encourage tuning in.
Absolutely. I like analogies. I like analogies.
Definitely.
So thanks again. Thanks again.
Albert. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right.
So we're going to check off now, and thank you, the entire audience, for joining. In half hour, we have another session with Rob, CEO and co-founder of Anchor Watch. See you guys in half an hour.
All right.
Thanks for listening.